Hi, Pavan. Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Charan. Hi, Kanika.
Hi.
Hi, Pavan.
We can't see you. Yeah, now we can.
Yeah.
Super. We are good to go. We are good to start. The recording is anyways in progress. Okay. Uh, Hi, everyone. Welcome to the eighth episode of the Bright Talks. So, Charan and Kanika, we've been doing this for the past 8 weeks. With earlier, we used to do dialogue with educationists. Charan was a part of it before, but now,
Okay.
you all know that now we are part of BrightCHAMPS, and right from day one, we wanted to continue that dialogue with educationists, but with a different tag name now called Bright Talks. So the primary objective is to kind of bring in all the key stakeholders of education and industrial folks, and debate or take certain insights on what is required in this 21st century in the field of education. And
Okay.
past 8 weeks, past 7 weeks, we had different topics. We spoke on Gen Alpha. We spoke about the parenting. We spoke on how teachers are. I mean, if at all we have to scale this next gen skills, then what is the role of a teacher, the role of the school founders, and things like that. And last week, when I was talking to a few of the students, especially 11th and 12th grade out at the high school, from 9 to 12, one of the biggest question is, what is going to happen down the line in terms of our career opportunities, what can we expect, how is the current things happening, because every day in the news we are seeing both the sides. We are seeing the sides on the layoffs, we are seeing the sides of the new job creations that is happening. So right now, we are in a very a debatable stage on what is going to happen in terms of the careers. Then I said, why don't I bring in the right panelists and take their insights on how the next generation careers are going to shape up. Like, we have Charan. Charan is a friend of mine. He's an entrepreneur himself. He's running an organization called stuMagz, which is a community platform for the college students. In fact, they are the ones who is bridging the gap between the industries and also the academics. And for the past 5-6 years, I've been interacting with him, and he's doing a great job. Thank you so much, Charan, for joining us today.
Thank you, Pavan.
And we have my colleague Kanika, who is a senior director of people experience at BrightCHAMPS. She's the first one that I have interacted with BrightCHAMPS, and the kind of every day that she's handling so many of us, so many bright champions at BrightCHAMPS. And of course, she's going to bring in today the dimension of what kind of skills that she herself is kind of looking at, and how the future of careers is going to shape up. Like, we will take her insights. Kanika, thank you so much for joining on a Saturday morning.
Thank you so much. And first of all, very nice to meet you as well, Charan. First interaction from the BrightCHAMPS perspective as well. And second, thank you for the honor as well of commenting and debating about this today. It's indeed a pleasure. Let's see what best we can. I'm not an expert, but I can only share my opinions here.
Right. So we'll keep it as candid as possible. We'll keep it as informal as possible, so that all the students can also relate to us. So we will start with I've divided into 4 segments. The first segment, we will talk about your journeys. How did you end up taking or pursuing what you are doing today? And then we'll deep dive into the subject discussions. So Charan, how did you start say stuMagz, and what led you to become an entrepreneur? Were you ever thinking of becoming an entrepreneur right from your school age?
Thank you, Pavan and Kanika. It's a bright Saturday morning, so that's how we have to start. So first, when being a '90s kid, it's when you're in school, you hardly heard the word called entrepreneur, and the times are changing. There are only 2 role models then. If you are a son of a government servant, it was one. The top zenith of a government service was a civil servant. Either you have to aspire to become a civil servant like an IAS or IPS or IFS officers. And the second one was a businessman, Dhirubhai Ambani's and the whole role models which were in the '90s era, who were coming out of the age. There were hardly any startup wala image as such in the '90s when we were in schools. The only thought was, if there was a funny statement which was a very popular Telugu dialogue. If you study well, you become a teacher. If you don't study well, you start a school. So it's like, sometimes that's a very funny statement, which made us think like, if you don't study well, you start a school. So when I look back, my journey was a typical Indian middle class household where you're son of a teacher and you're always told that you have to get into an IIT and later do an IAS or prep for UPSC. But things have changed in the 2006, the year where I was applying for IIT. I didn't qualify in chemistry. And that was a moment where it made me think that my father didn't agree for me to write the exam next year. And I made to sit and join a local engineering college. Even today, that has become my whole objective of running stuMagz, and now it is known as Student Tribe. The whole objective was to just tell that students are great beyond IITs too. And when we started, the whole point when I joined engineering, I always felt there are a lot of majority of Indian students who are there in the tier 2, tier 3 colleges are not getting their due. When I say I'm not getting their due, it's like the HRs or the companies have a different opinion in hiring them or not going to those colleges to get hired right candidates. But there are lots of suitable candidates who are loyal, who are more objective oriented, who are hardworking too. I was always feeling like why people have the edge, with all due respect to IITs and the premier institutions, but we say that majority always gets not doesn't get the right due. And that made me think, again, I joined a company called Infosys, worked for a while. But in 2014, the year 2013 and 14, the year when Flipkart became unicorn, that those was the years when you started hearing the words called startups and a lot of community events which were happening. And that made me think, it's like, okay, let me solve people, whenever you go to any startup event, they say, identify a problem, identify a solution for it. And the problem should be experienced by you. Unless you experience that problem by yourself, you can't give a right solution to it. And that's when I felt, why can't I start a community platform for all the tier 2, tier 3 college students, for them to get the right deserving opportunities. And that's how stuMagz and now it's Student Right got evolved in the last 6 to 7 years now. Yeah.
Oh, congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Charan. Maybe we will deep dive into IITs and all of those. I mean, in some time, but we'll hear from Kanika. Kanika, your journey, please.
I could relate to some of the points that Charan was mentioning, that problem should be experienced by you if you want to find the solution, and that was my motivation to move into HR. A lot of people end up being HR, but in my case, I started my journey on very different notes. From integrated PhD to almost doing a psychology, and then as an employee, when I joined the organization, I realized that there is one element which is missing in biggest of the organizations, which is that employee touch, right? I mean, and AIs obviously will never take that away, right? So that is when the journey of becoming a people experience as against the HR started in my head. But what is it? What would I have done if I moved into HR? So I picked up psychology after that, developed a lot of other skills that were needed, and pursued one degree as well, and got a job there. So it was, a very deliberate call, and the journey has been phenomenal after that. And maximum learning comes when you're talking to people.
Right.
So and we hire people. If we cannot understand and make things better for them, I think they are the first level customers. If we can take care of them, I think they take care of the people. That's the kind of things that we implemented as well at couple of places and got them to become the best places to work. So that has what been the drive always.
Super. So thanks for sharing your journey. So is there, because since most of our audience are from the schools, and our motive at Bright Talks also to kind of, inspire those school children to with these talks. How is your schooling has helped to till now, to kind of pursue what it is? And is there anything that you can map or say, is there anything that has helped right from your schooling to what you're doing today? Any relevancy with that, Charan, if you can?
So again, we cannot discount on the fact what schooling did to one person. It's like, it's schooling is not just about the academics at all. There's a lot beyond academics which shapes people, like the teamwork which you learn in the sports field, or the coordination which you learn when you're doing some school events as a leader or delegating to someone. The first level of event management starts from the school. And it's not just about selecting friends, but again, choosing the right juniors to delegate some tasks. When you look back today, how identifying talent or spark in people, I think Kanika can add more from her HR experience. The toughest thing is judging people. People say that you should not judge people. But again, when you're hiring, you have to judge someone. So it's like sometimes these are the things which you learn in school, because people come from different backgrounds. And for the first time when you're in, especially I'm talking about the building days of The middle school, the primary school is a different story, but the middle school is when you start knowing things, and the high school is start when you start acting on things. When you know and act, those are the days where they are like those foundations which are formed in the school, which make the whole building stay stronger. And the bonds which you have made, the connections which you have made at school are more what I say are the more transparent ones, not the ones which are judged and because of any. It's not transactional relationships. It is more about you are identified as a person, and your qualities and your attributes, the way you conduct yourself. People always are bonded to you, and these are the bonds which you cherish for life. And even when you look back at those days now, and the people, uh, they were the most non-judgmental people that you can find ever in your life. Yeah.
Right. Right. So you think that there is, I mean, it has helped you to kind of, probably judge the people well, or say to trust the people well.
Correct.
So, okay.
It helps you to break the ice very easily. And it's like, if you go back, if you just see the person as they are,
Right.
which is the most toughest thing to do these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Kanika, your thoughts on this?
I think it is very nice to sometimes reflect upon what you learned at school and see how it has impacted certain aspects of your life till date, right? And the first thing that can come to my mind is, we all had timetables at school, as much as we hated it, right? But it tells you the importance of allocating time to tasks and finishing it. You from time to time, how do you take a break? And it also teaches us the importance of breaks. Always those recesses or the morning or the day end. We all looked forward to it, right? That how is that break needed to continue with the rest of the half of the day? So that was one very important thing about the time management and taking break. I think you have to be accommodative, otherwise nobody likes to be alone in school. Especially, you don't even have that emotional quotient to understand that I can be a loner. So that emotional intelligence of how do you be in the school, be in group, how to lead by example, because some of us became prefects in school, right? And as a prefect, you're expected to be perfect as well. So how do you lead by example and get your at least the first circle and the next circle to influence each other? So influential skills can be very important if you want to become a leader, even in school.
Right.
So a lot of things like how do you collaborate? And I think Charan was talking about company events. That is what comes naturally to me. But when we talk about school events, it used to be similar, organizing the team together. Even if you're going to play cricket, identifying your best ones, giving them opportunity as against taking it. So working as a team, all those things I think are very well actually engraved during our native years.
Right. Interesting. So Kanika, you left me 3 open points here. One is on the emotional intelligence, empathy, influential skills, right?
Yeah.
And these are, so these are the skills. Today we are realizing that, the importance of these skills. And right from the school level, we kind of built upon it. Probably we did not reflect upon it, but now we are kind of realizing. So there is a huge mapping between what we've done in the school versus what we are today, and what we are looking from the people also today.
Yeah, and I think there is a gap as well, if I have to say, because there is much more research and awareness about EQ today, right? When we were growing up, I'm an 80s kid. EQ, I mean, if we would have talked to our parents the way kids do today, there's so much mature conversations that I notice between the kids and their parents now. I mean, being an 80s kid and coming from North and the business families, you get whacked for almost everything. So the EQ develops in a very different way from what it develops today. There is a lot of emphasis, and I think that's a good sign.
Yeah, correct. So okay, now we'll deep dive into the topic of the careers, and then we'll try to map all of this. So so Charan, when we are talking about careers, right? I mean, because you have a very big tribe right now. You have around, say, more than 500,000 students that are going through your platforms, or you are talking to them. When you were to advise them, say, the top 3 skills that they need to build upon as on today's 21st century, what would your preferences be? What top 3 skills that you wanted to do? And then we will see on how do we implement across the schools on those skills. 3 skills that you recommend.
To be implemented in the schools.
Not in the schools, in general, what you observe while you are kind of bringing them to your team, or if you were to suggest to your peers.
See, most of the skills which we look at are not taught. It's like, the first thing, people who just put it in their resumes. I feel there is life beyond resume for a person. Whenever we look at, like, it's some of the subtle things which we read between the lines are the most important things which someone has to incorporate. One, I talk about initiative. Someone who wants to take an initiative. We have to. It's like in their past activities or wherever it is. Today, I'm looking at people who are not managers. We want people who are initiators or who are leaders. It's like, the quality of taking initiative, because the taking initiative is something that certificate of participation that everybody has. Everybody, participates in 100 events or 30 events or extracurricular activities. Somewhere these were very rare things for 80s and 90s, but these days, like, most of the schools ensure that each and everyone participates in something or other.
Yeah.
But who started it? Who took the initiative? Such people always grow up the ladder, which we just check. Because the second thing, which I keep looking at, about what is the purpose behind taking up an opportunity. A lot of them are not clear about when they take up a role. Are they doing some background research? Are they curious? Because the curiosity is gone for a toss. People are so not at all curious these days to know about something. When I say curious, because chat GPTs and the whole Googles of the world, and now chat GPTs currently, are making people not to know about few things, because they say, like, if I have to know something, I can probe something, I can drop a query. But how curious you are to know how a chat GPT works, how curious you are to know a mathematical model works. When you're curious, the advantage that you will have is all about taking, as I want to connect the two skills. Someone who is curious about an initiative wants to take an initiative by himself in different domain. He wants to know what's happening around the world. He wants to check, or he or she wants to check what's happening around the world so that they can implement in their organization. We need such people when we are building startups and the organizations which are especially less than 100 employees, 200 employees. Look for such leaders, because a lot of them, we need multitaskers. We can't just say, I want to be a specialist in something, I can't do something else. Such things doesn't work. Third, it is very more important. It's about empathy, which is some skill which is not there on the resume, or not you, because I don't want to talk about the hard skills here. Everyone talks about the hard skills, or those are skills which can be learned. These are the skills which have to be imbibed from your exposure, and more than experience, it is about the exposure that you have to a lot of things will help people. And these are the skills which I look whenever I'm hiring someone. Yeah.
Got it. So ownership, curiosity, and empathy. These are the 3 skills that you are seeing, and you suggest like people should develop those. Kanika, your top 3 skills.
So I think when we look at the resume, which is the first point of contact between the hiring manager or the company and the candidate / the person who's applying, is your resume. A bit of personality always reflects in your resume. So how you curate it is also very important, and that's the first 3 seconds are like, whether should we go ahead or should we not. So in that time, some of the things that I personally look for is has somebody done something different? Like, if there is somebody who's, say, having that NCC kind of a, NCC accreditation done, that is an added advantage, because those people learn jugaad at an early age. And I think that's one thing that you really need to learn to be hustler in India, for sure, at this stage. Because if you have to get a lot of things done, one thing that you really need to learn is jugaad. The communication is second bit, because it is how are you able to get your message across? How articulate are you in a small document? talks a lot. If you're, way too detailed at times, we lose the essence. So that is second bit. And third is your journey. How have you progressed around the journey? So that always is interesting to look at it, if they've been exploratory, and the kind of role, the mapping of the role to their resume is also equally important. And a lot of fun is obviously discovered during the conversation with the person, if we go to that.
Right. So Jugaad, communication, and progression. So these are the three things that Kanika mentioned. So if at all I combine the 6 things what Charan and Kanika was mentioning about: ownership, curiosity, empathy, Jugaad, communication, and progression. So it's 6 of them are 6 complementary things. And just wanted to know that how do we build upon these, right? I mean, say, right, because if at all I were a school student, and if at all you give me these 6 skills to kind of develop on, I really do not be having any direction, because these are nowhere related to the academics. These are all completely non-academic. And you are talking about building ownership while the teachers are teaching, where teachers might not be having that ownerships because they are still, are doing their jobs. So is there any best practices that you suggest to develop or play around with these skills, Charan? Yeah.
So it's like, I always, it's like in the school level, the club memberships or the ownerships or the kind of leadership roles that people take up. A lot of people shy away from taking up leadership roles. It's like, I keep saying, like, initiating a club, if that doesn't exist in your school, or, let's say there are a lot of existing clubs which are there where you can take up a leadership role also. Both the cases here talk about the ownership, which I say even in the annual days or the smallest of the smallest events, there is an MC. There is an MC. There is someone who just takes up the ownership or jumping forward to take up that. Okay, fine, I'll lead the way. And as Kanika rightly mentioned about clubs like NCC and all others, they give you an opportunity to lead a group of people. They give you an opportunity to live in tough conditions. With the minimum resources what you have, you start appreciating the things in a better way. I keep telling my 7-year-old son now, most of the time he's in a primary school, but the problem is like most of the current generation, because parents want to provide all kind of facilities to them, some of them forget to appreciate few things. And these clubs with the minimal resources or minimal budgets that they have to organize an event.
Right. I think Charan is frozen. Okay, let Charan rejoin. I think there is some technical glitch there. So, Kanika, I mean, yeah. So you spoke about, say, communication, right? I mean, communication is one of the important skills. So, when I am dealing with close to, say, 50,000, 60,000 students on a day-to-day basis, one of the things that even the parents or the schools or students are trying to deal with is how do they communicate, not in terms of the language, but in terms of how do they communicate their ideas or how do they communicate their thoughts. So right from the school level, anything that we can practice on to kind of communicate these ideas on the soft skills, because you mentioned 3 important points. One is emotional intelligence, empathy, influential skills, all of it combined together. Say, how do we, how can the student practice to gain these skills?
Actually, one more point to the previous one is that every student may not develop, and we have to also understand that we'll have shortcomings there. So one size may not fit all. But communication is something that I think is a skill that can be nurtured. And to be honest, there were times when I couldn't utter. But it was a skill, and small things that could help were a little bit of extra reading. I was literally forced to read the newspaper. But that used to help, right? Even if it was, and like I said, it was a different 80th century. But now I think by telling the importance, if you can make people read, communication is not just about being able to speak the language, but articulate your point to the point. So, and that can happen if you're reading, if you're talking to people, right? So again, your people skill come and play, and
Right.
getting your message across. So if I'm not able to talk to you, it's not that you cannot understand the language. The problem is
Right.
my communication. That is communication, which is what we miss most of the time. That it is
Right.
to get your message across. And in schools, the kind of debate competitions that have always been in existence, the extemporaries,
Right.
and having healthy ones about newer topics, whatnot. I mean, I think these are things that really helped. And one more personal practice was pick up a topic and talk to yourself about it, because you can hear your own sound, and that helps build a lot of confidence.
Interesting. One is articulation is something that you mentioned about. I think we'll emphasize more on that. Say, how do we articulate? How do we build that skills? Debate competitions, yes, events management, and talking to ourselves or reflecting our thoughts with us. So Charan, sorry we missed you before, but yeah, you were saying on say, how do we build these skills, right? Charan, your voice, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. So some of the things which just happened, a technical issue that you have to have the conflict management. How you learn those things when you start or take up an initiative in the school. With the minimum resources what you have, when you just take up a kind of an opportunity, then you'll know like you're learning something. Let's say the founder of BrightCHAMPS comes to Kanika and says like, I'll give a very minimum budget, but you have to do a gala event. How do you do that? It's like, you just feel like, how can I execute such a gala event in a minimum budget? But sometimes in school, when you are taking up that initiative with those minimum budget, you have to collect funds, you have to go to sponsors and get things executed. That's where you start learning few things in a very hard way. And second thing, the empathy. Where do you learn empathy? It's like it's about how Kanika was mentioning about reading as a skill.
Right.
That's becoming obsolete these days. But listening as a skill too. Are you an active listener? Are you ready to listen to someone? So people love, it's like someone is, we're talking about mental health and a lot of other issues popping up. People don't find listeners.
Right.
It's like, am I a good listener to someone? Am I having patience to listen to someone or hear them out? And that makes other person feel so important. These days, I keep telling like a good friend is a person who just doesn't talk to you. It's not about who listens to you, because that person whom you need, that who is just one call away and you can just tell your rant or till you vent it out, but you should be listening to them. And that quality, when you are as a leader in a school, when you listen to different people, your juniors, you are empathizing with their position. Why are they why are they not able to perform? Such qualities will help you go places in your life. Yeah.
I mean, interesting, right? I mean, the listening skills, this is one thing that that is added to the list now, and also the conflict resolution or conflict management is something that is done. So we put together so many thoughts and so many skills, right? I mean, almost close to 10 skills that we put together. Now, how do we shape that to a career, or how do we, if at all we are gaining this as a skill, how can we make it as a career is something that we'll talk now. So again, Kanika, so I mean, while we are developing these skills, is there any chance or will there be any limelight towards the end that yes, I am going to pursue this? For example, I want to become an entrepreneur. Now that I have built all of these skills, it becomes easy for me to run an organization. Or I want to become a software developer, or I want to become a AI or MI machine learning specialist. If at all I build these kind of skills, it becomes easy there. So where is the correlation between the skills versus say careers?
Okay, so if you are making something like a soup, right, that's your end goal in an analogy. the basics that you need, if they are in place early on, like if you keep your water, salt,
Right.
the sauces right next to it, it becomes easier to create the end product. I think in terms of the jobs, it's very similar. That if these skills can be nurtured right at the school level, right, and you will automatically start seeing the patterns also. One size doesn't fit all. So
Yeah.
you will see some of the students are the ones who would like to get things done alone and get things done to the perfection. Those become like super specialist coders, right?
Right.
There are some who get things done by the people. You just give them the ownership. Those are the leaders whom you can actually see, and those can be the backbenchers also, by the way, who
Right.
just orchestrate the entire class from behind. So those are different types of leaders. So a lot of these things can be seen in school, and if nurtured, and obviously these days schools do a lot of career planning, I assume.
Career counseling.
So career counseling as well. So I'm assuming they do psychometry as well on those aspects. So can help a lot.
Right, right. So Charan, your thoughts on say how these skills will help us to kind of build a career, or if at all we already chose a career, then say how do we package careers plus skills? You're on mute.
Just to put it in a nutshell, like what we study as a hard skill or a technical skill is not just related to the career directly. A lot of people feel like if I have to, if I study X, I'll do Y. It doesn't. There's not always that relation which is there. First thing, we have to accept that point. A lot of people say like I study astrophysics, then I become an astronaut. Like that's how a 10th class or a 9th class guy, a student always wishes to. But what you study, what you become, let's accept the fact that they both are not always in sync. Let's understand that first.
Yeah.
When you accept that reality, it makes you a better person. Number one. Number two, how do you identify yourself? The question is not just about skills. The question is about the typical Robert Frost style, the road not taken, and how you have to take, which path you have to take. Let me be very clear. It's not about what is trending today, what is in trend after a decade.
Right.
You have to understand you'll work after maybe a decade or 5 to 7 years afterwards.
Right.
Always start thinking about future proof rather than today. What's attractive today might be obsolete tomorrow. So you're just seeing someone in your neighborhood or your cousins or family friends. I will be like that. That doesn't make sense after a point of time because their skill might be obsolete after a point of time. That's one. Second, how do you are you a creator? Are you let's say the same skill which I say, if you're not curious, are you a user or are you a creator? Let's say I'll put it in the same way. When you are a game, when you're playing a game, are you curious about the graphics? Are you curious about the processor? Are you curious about what's the response time, how it is happening? Or are you just a happy-go-lucky guy who's just enjoying game for having fun? Is your mind probing a lot of questions, saying that, okay, this game has been built, what is the resolution, what is the pixel rate, what are the qualities, what is the response time? Is your mind asking such questions, or you're just saying having fun? So when you're having fun, you are a good user. There's no second thought about it. But if you're curious about how the game is built, so even to build a game, you have to play the game.
Yeah.
That's where you feel like the experience is not great. Then you feel that you have to make the game better. So that's where your personality comes in, where if you are a creator, you open your laptop by yourself and you do something. Or you go to your PC at home and just do something. Or
Right.
are you asking the right questions at dining table to your father, who might be a right role model, who is, the kind of questions which make the other person feel uncomfortable? That's where you feel that you are a creator. If you are a user, it's like I keep telling people my favorite subject. Sometimes it all depends on your teacher. If it's not about, you might be good at something else, but you might find a good teacher in a certain subject, and that makes you feel that you love it.
Right.
You have to be very clear whether are you loving the subject or the teaching. It's you have to understand the difference also,
Right.
because people take up certain things due to those influential factors also. So the new gen should understand about the careers which happen after 5 years or 6 years, because that's when you start your career, not what is in trend today.
Right. I think, Charan, what you spoke on the creator mindset is something that, or say the entrepreneurial mindset or the design thinking mindset is something that is a need of the hour. And so surprisingly, both of you have not spoken about academics at in any point here. So now I wanted to know, right. So Kanika, when you are screening the profiles, when you are interacting with the people uh, at any point of their career, um, how much of academics that you are seeing in this case? Because during the beginning of the conversation, we spoke about IITs here, and recently the NEET results are out, and recently the IIT JEE results were also out. If at all you still see, we were more curious on that news than how many creator mindsets are coming out of a school. Because for the school, still outside the gates, we are still saying, what ranks, what percentage in 11th, 12th, and still companies like us, say BrightCHAMPS, are still and good to have offering for a school. But whereas we as industry experts, in fact, the founders of the schools, they want to place BrightCHAMPS or so the course, the next generation course, as a topmost priority. So, how do we change that mindset of the parents / schools that, the skills like, say, empathy, emotional intelligence, ownership, creator mindset, or say design thinking mindset to be coming in the first? And personally, I wanted to ask you, how, like, what kind of perception that it gives if at all a student with, say, 59 percentage in 10th, but while you are interacting with him or her, you have seen a lot of maturity in terms of the ownership mindset. Which one will you weigh more, and what would be your decision like?
Very interesting, by the way. And so one, it is defined by the job profile that we are looking for, right? Because you need different skill set, and your marks also tell you there used to be obviously studies backing, what percentage is scored by what category of students. Everything is relevant. Second is, obviously, it is decided by the organization as well. But especially if you're hiring at a leadership level, or after a particular, say, somebody who spends, say, 6-7 years in the industry, I don't think marks make any sense. They stop making sense, right? Because when you're talking to the person, we actually assess more in terms of their maturity. What have they learned? Their learnability, if there is a quotient to be put. Like we were talking about the progression, what have they done along the journey? It becomes more important. Their articulation, because they're going to be having stakeholder management and not just, the technical expertise to be executed.
Right.
So, in my opinion, the job profile and the job level that you assess at makes a lot of difference. Marks can be a good indicator as well, because they show diligence. Certain jobs require diligence, right? The college that you went to shows your perseverance. Getting into IIT is not easy. It requires you to show that perseverance during the early ages, right? So there is a correlation as well that exists,
Right.
depending on, and which is why those students are always given higher packages. And it is exciting to see those compa ratio studies as well, right?
Right. Yes, there is correlation. I agree with you on this. So Charan, your thoughts on this, right?
It's like, again, the academic details always help you to understand a person, but depends on the role which you are hiring. So some of the roles which are there, it always helps. Like, I'll tell you about the IIM candidates when we are choosing for the branding and the marketing area. It's like, some of them they bring in that alumni network and the whole the connections which they make during their college days. It's
Right.
always easier for them to open the doors for, as an entrepreneur, when you are hiring your team, the connections matter a lot, even you have a great product.
Right.
So such colleges and academic credentials will always help you to choose such people for certain roles,
Correct.
because these are the people. Again, there are some of the roles which we feel like they're great people, but you know that they don't have great academic qualifications. You
Right.
just choose them as a founder's office. It's like, you just ensure that, you have to make them feel better, and you just say like, ye apne jaisa hai. It's always about and most of the hiring which happens, it's like, you see yourself in the other person.
Right.
The first, whatever said and done, how many technical things we pop up, we always try to see a mirror, stand before it and just identify what are the qualities that they have. And the benchmarking is done in our mind, not on the physical paper.
Right. So entrepreneurs in residence, right? I mean, this is one of the new things that,
The terminologies, I think the HRs come with a very nice terms here and there, and there are a lot of good terminology. Someone was asking, in our office, there are no managers, there are only leads. It's like, okay, fine. So it's all about the hierarchies which we create. But as you rightly asked, the college plays a very big role because of the peer-to-peer learning what they have, and the network. The network which they form in the college has a very strong power
Right.
to get that partnerships going on,
Right.
to get that M&As done.
Right.
And a lot of M&As happen through people knowing right people at right time.
Correct. True.
Yeah.
True. And so during our conversation, you guys have mentioned about chat GPTs, or say you spoke about the futuristic skills that are required and things like that. Now, earlier, there used to be a lot of students used to come to me while they were making their statement of purpose. Right? They used to come to me on what kind of experience that they had and things like that. And we used to brainstorm on how do they present themselves and things like that. Now they stopped coming to me because they're going to ChatGPT. Right? They started putting the key terms of what they have done, and finally, there is a nice letter that is coming. The ChatGPT is giving. Yeah, so ChatGPT is definitely a threat. I mean, I wanted to check with you all. Is it going to be a threat for the future of jobs? Right? I mean, at Metamorphosis, when we were a very small team, we used to use a lot of automated tools. So since we couldn't afford for many people, we used to use a lot of softwares and things like that. So definitely there is a threat for certain jobs. But future, when we look at say 7 or 8 years from now, definitely we really cannot, the things are very much uncertain. So what is one suggestion that you give to the children, to the kids right now, that apart from the skills that you have mentioned, how do they go about it? Like I was telling you 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, during Bright Talks, I brought in 4 Gen Alpha students. One of them is in 11th grade. And then he was saying, I asked them, what is it that they wanted to become, entrepreneur or things like that. They said, I want to pursue my passion. If my passion is just to do some clerical work, I don't mind doing that. I don't mind working for 10,000 rupees also, because right now because slowly even the parents or things like that, no one is dependent on the children anymore. I mean, everyone has created their own wealth and things like that. So I wanted to know from you that how do we find the passion? How do we strike a balance between the future of work, and is it a threat, or is it creating more jobs? Is ChatGPT creating more jobs? So Kanika, your overview, the kind of openings, if at all I see in BrightCHAMPS, still there are plenty of openings in our company also, right? I mean, how the landscape is going to look like the next 7 or 8 years from now?
Very interesting. And by the way AI is progressing and intruding into our lives, it is very important to just do one thing to it: embrace. It is becoming a necessary evil, and the more you stay reluctant to it, the more you will become obsolete. It's about embracing the change as well. You cannot say no to it. So that's the first acceptance that we need to have. Second is, yes, there are some categories of the jobs which are obviously under the radar, but we have to look at the brighter side as well. Every coin has two sides, and it is creating newer jobs as well, like the prompt engineers, right? What the AI ethics will come into play. The AI instructors, the AI auditors, whatnot can come into play. So a lot of, and for that matter, these developers itself, where do we see the maximum use of AI? In assistant jobs, the voice assistant and all the visual assistants, right?
Right.
Those developers and deployment itself is a skill that needs to be developed. And it's so niche right now that they are highly paid in the US industry. So
Right.
Developing those skills and finding your path in those aspects as well is important.
Right. Right.
Information security, I mean, it will have to be up in the game as
Right.
well.
Right. Interesting. So, Charan, your view on the landscape for the next 6-7 years?
See, AI, let's accept that any redundant works, obviously in any organization, AI will replace few jobs. We have to accept that fact. And when I say like if the menial works which were happening, those are the things which AI will always, the different AI tools which are popping up. But I always say like, the toughest roles which get replaced is the middle management roles. The kind of the middle management will decrease, and there will be a lot of fresh and senior kind of a thing. The middle, why I say is like the middle level management was always to vet a lot of things. The kind of a vetting process, and you have to ensure that things are happening on time and the flow is maintained, the SOPs are maintained. Those were the roles of the middle level management, especially. So that the most threat is not to the freshers actually, is that the bottom level is always safer. Because
Right.
the bottom level is always like ready to learn. Are you moldable? Are you ready to get molded into something? Are you ready to adapt something to new? The senior you get, the level of adaptation gets decreased. It's like I was talking to my father yesterday. We were on a vacation, and I just said like he uses Facebook in a very comfortable way. I use Facebook. I started using Facebook when he was not using Facebook. Now I started using Instagram. And I'm more comfortable with Instagram than Facebook. But I meet a student. He says I spend more time in Snapchat. So it's like if you observe the adoption level of a product or a technology as you grow up the ladder decreases. So the freshers are always the great prompt engineers that a senior level management guy would love to have as an founder's office or entrepreneur in residence or an EA or executive assistants or whatnot. They'll get things done. And they say that you have to do the work of 3 people because you have AI as a support.
Right.
But the middle level management are the sandwich guys who will experience the more heat in the coming days. That's one thing. Second, how practically you can utilize ChatGPT and create layers over it. That is the most important thing that people have as businesses. We all have to learn.
Right.
Like
Right.
it is not trying to compete with ChatGPT and produce something. I'm
Right.
not trying to be on the side of Sam Altman or someone says that some tool will come from India to compete ChatGPT. It is rather than trying to compete with ChatGPT or such tools because it requires a decade of investment into it,
Right.
which a lot of people can't do. It is better if you create a tool over ChatGPT as a wrapper. As a wrapper, how you can take that open source tool and create a tool for career counseling.
Right.
How you can create a wrapper which makes, again, people's investment, the prompt should be preloaded. It's almost like that LinkedIn chat when Kanika messages me like, glad to meet you. It says like, thank you, Kanika. The as minimum message that I am lazy to type, thank you, Kanika, if it is given as a prompt to me, I use it. Similarly, how can we create wrapper tools over ChatGPT,
Right.
which can be a greater subscription tools for a lot of people?
Got it. Got it. Very interesting. I mean,
And
yeah. Yes, Kanika.
one more point was like jobs like copywriters and all might go, but we will have jobs for copy editors will increase, because like we were talking about the wrapping up the content, it is about how do you add those additional beautifications to again articulate and communicate better. Chat
Right.
GPT will give the same result to almost everybody, but how are you adding your brand, your element to it will make a lot of difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So to add to that, I mean, the empathy of what you have mentioned is something that will be really important, even if
Yeah.
the technology is kind of replacing few things, right? I mean, now I mean, more than in the office, we spend a lot of time in the schools. And when we see, um, the new things that you were talking about, say prompt engineers, or you were talking about copy editors, we were talking about the conflict resolutions and all of those. And when I look at our NCRT books, or when we look at our state board books, or say in fact Cambridge or IB also, the relevancy is nowhere near to the to what we are talking today, right?
Yes.
So there is for a lot of transformation in the schools. So that in fact all the principals, they also agree. That's why companies like say BrightCHAMPS slash they all are, we are all existing to support to this kind of vision. But I'm taking a couple of questions from my students that I've got. And one question is to stuMagz, okay, to Charan. So she's saying that what is it that the risk taking? How did you develop risk taking appetite to start something on your own?
So when you don't have an option, you always take risks. So it's like, if you have options, then your risk-taking appetite get decreased. So I'm not trying to. I was trying to be as candid as possible, but the point which I'm trying to say you is like a calculated risk with a risk with a time frame.
Right.
Is always the better, that you'll not have regrets that you didn't try.
Right.
It's always like, like it's the next 18 months or 24 months. Let me give it a shot. So
Right.
as always, the 24 months keeps extending. That's a different story. But the whole point is, when you start with a certain time frame, it makes your job easier to take a decision.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Okay. I'll take one more question. Okay. To Kanika. Okay. I think we discussed on this. So he was asking more on the grades. I mean, say how the grades are playing a prominent role in the jobs. And he also wanted to know if at all the skills that we spoke so far, if at all they're having, what is a greater source of learning? So do you recommend any books or any source of learning for this?
I am a learner who learns through people. So different people have different things that they can learn from. There are so many self-help books which are available, and people who want to learn will find those books for sure. My recommendation to learn is like, be as participative in different things that you get exposed to during school time.
Right.
And see where your interest lies, because you will have to find your own interests and your ways of learning. It's every journey is going to be different, but do not close yourself. That's one important thing, and we weren't told these things when we were kids.
Right.
So experience school in entirety as much as you can, and see what you learn through books, videos, talking to people, touch and feel activities. I mean, there are different ways: auditory, seeing, kinesthetics, everything.
Right. Cool. So I think just to sum up, just to connect all the dots of what we spoken so far, Kanika and Charan, they have shared their personal journeys, how they have ended up being an entrepreneur or a leader in the organizations. And then when I spoke about 3 important skills that are important, that are required, or that they choose or pick, ownership, curiosity, and empathy is something Charan was recommending, and Kanika was recommending Jugaad, communication, and progression, how you have transformed or how you have progressed in your careers. And articulation is something that Kanika was also talking about when we tap down into the communication. And then Charan was talking more on the listening skills. We need to be a good listener. I mean, that is one of the skills that everyone should master. And then later, a lot many skills have popped up. Listening skills, conflict resolutions. We were also talking about, the future-proof skills that are required, which is the creator mindset and the calculative risk that is important. And also we spoke about, even if at all AI is coming, there is a turnaround to it. There is a flip side to that also. There will be a lot of jobs that will be relevant to this 21st century. And we also spoke about how do we build this by joining the clubs, by taking ownerships, by doing certain events in the schools. We also spoke about, I think one thing, Charan, if at all you can help us for the students of BrightCHAMPS, that if at all there is, because you're talking about events or the ownerships and all, if at all there is any internship opportunities for the students, we would love to, see if at all we can bridge that. Now that Kanika is also here, I think this is the right forum to ask you on, if at all we can bring in some internships or some certain industrial exposure where there is relevancy of the skills that we spoke about. Then I think my objective of this episode is much more fruitful.
Sure, Pavan. We'd love to discuss more on the collaboration part, and we will understand because these days the age is just a number. We cannot discount anyone. It's about a lot of good comm skills and the kind of schooling that people are having and the kind of confidence levels that they have with a touch of BrightCHAMPS, and it's an icing on the cake for them, and which is a great kind of a way that they'll present to the world, and you'll be a great launch pad, and in future you'll create a lot of BrightCHAMPS across India and the world.
Right. Thank you so much for that. We'll keep this conversation open, and we'll update the progress to the students. And Kanika, so I think all the skills that we spoke about itself is a course, right? Itself is a biggest course for the learner.
Exactly.
That is going to be there. So if at all from BrightCHAMPS, if at all we can provide a go-to place, I mean, to begin with, at least some kind of say references or things like that to our students, I think there will be a great benefit. It will be the right match. And I think that's where we have done. But just to conclude, I think decoding next generation careers, I think there is a lot of opportunities for everyone. Build the skills from your school level itself, participate as much as you can, and package it into the career. And the HRs or the people who are recruiting, they're very much open, not just with the academics. I think non-academics also has a bigger weightage while you are trying for any kind of careers. And grades 9 to 12, I mean, whoever is going to watch this episode, please do feel free to connect to Kanika and Charan on LinkedIn. They're very much active, and utilize this opportunity, build the skills, and next generation careers are all yours. Thank you so much. Yes,
Pavan, if there is a requirement, some of this, the reference list of books, because people can read, some of the video links that have helped me at least, I can send across those to you if you want to circulate to the students, or send the link to in the bio as well.
Please
I'll take 2 to 3 days, but I'll share it with you.
No problem. That will be helpful. Thanks, Kanika. Thanks, Charan. Thank you so much for joining on a Saturday morning, and I love the session.
Thank you. Thanks everyone. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Pavan, for hosting us on the Saturday morning as well. Have a great Saturday.
Bye-bye.